Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Wherever you're tuning in from around the world, I welcome you. Now, before we dive in, let me ask you something that might challenge the way you think about yourself. What if I told you that your will, your simple ability to choose, might be the most powerful force in the universe? I'm not talking about your intelligence, not your education, not your money. I'm talking about that silent decision maker inside you, the will. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt something deep in your soul calling you to do more, be more, reach farther, but something held you back? Was it fear, doubt, or was it simply that you didn't realize how powerful your will actually is? Because here's the truth. We are launching ships into galaxies we've never visited. We are building technology that reads thoughts. We are decoding the human genome, but still, many people haven't yet discovered the full power of the one thing that controls their destiny, their own will. Let me hear from you right now in the chat or comments. Have you ever made a decision that changed everything? Just write yes, if that's you, because today we're going beyond inspiration. We're going to unlock something dormant inside of you. There is a reason you're listening to this message today. And before this is over, I promise you, you'll never think of your will the same way again. So lean in, stay with me, because what you're about to hear might just redefine your future. The will is the most powerful force in the human soul. It is the gatekeeper of all that enters and exits your life. Every choice you've made, every habit you've kept, every path you've taken, it all traces back to a single source, your will. The mind can conceive ideas, the heart can feel emotions, but only the will has the authority to act. That is why the will determines destiny. You were not created to be led by chance. You were designed to chart your course through the strength of your decisions. The will is not passive, it is a gate. And gates have one job, to control what gets in and what stays out. Until you take ownership of your will, you will always be managed by external forces, culture, emotion, fear, or failure. Consider the life of Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor who endured unimaginable torture in Nazi concentration camps. His family was murdered, his dignity stripped, his body weakened. Yet he discovered that while they could control his body, they could not control his will. He made a conscious choice to live with meaning, to find purpose even in suffering. He later wrote Man's Search for Meaning, a book that transformed millions of lives. His story proves that even in chains, a man with a free will is powerful. Your future is not written by your background, your pain, or your surroundings. It is written by your will. If you will to succeed, the universe cannot stop you. If you will to forgive, healing will follow. If you will to rise above mediocrity, heaven will back you. Galactic exploration, technological innovation, societal reformation, all began when someone said, I choose to believe, I choose to try, I choose to go. The will is how we step into unknown territory and make it known. It is how we take the invisible and pull it into the visible. You are not the sum total of your environment. You are the result of your internal choices. Where you come from may shape your perspective, but it does not dictate your potential. People blame their upbringing, their neighborhood, their lack of opportunity. But the truth is, the will can transcend any environment. The Garden of Eden was perfect, yet man still chose to disobey. That proves a powerful truth. Even in paradise, the will can rebel. On the other hand, even in the worst conditions, the will can choose greatness. This tells us that it is not Eden or Egypt that defines a man. It is the condition of his will. Look at Stephen Hawking. Diagnosed with ALS, given 2 years to live, eventually unable to move or speak. But while his body was decaying, his will was expanding. He used his mind to reach across galaxies, proposing theories that shaped our understanding of time and black holes. His wheelchair confined his body, but not his will. The universe responded not to his condition, but to his decision. People often use their environment as an excuse to stay small. I wasn't raised in the right family. I don't have the right education. My country doesn't offer opportunities. These are not barriers, they are backdrops, and a strong will doesn't surrender to its backdrop. It paints new possibilities upon it. The will is a universal passport. It is not limited by borders, education, or background. It empowers a young boy in a war-torn village to dream of becoming a scientist. It enables a girl raised in a slum to envision herself in space. This is not motivational fluff. It's proven by history, psychology, and spiritual truth. A man's will can carry him where his body has never been. Your environment may inform your perspective, but your will decides your trajectory. If your will is strong enough, you can rise above lack, trauma, and even gravity itself. This is why the pioneers of space didn't start with rockets. They started with vision. With will, galaxies are not discovered by the comfortable. They are revealed to the willing. Divine power is available, but not automatic. It doesn't flow simply because there's a need. It flows through alignment, and the access point is the will. The will acts as a spiritual switch. Until it is turned toward agreement, heaven remains silent. God honors your choice. Even when miracles are possible, they are not imposed. Jesus, before healing the sick, often asked one critical question: do you want to be made whole? That wasn't just a test of desire. It was a demand on the will. A crippled man may have need, but if he's unwilling, power will not move. Divine assistance waits on human agreement. Heaven does not respond to need. It responds to willingness. When you will to believe, you give permission for divine power to work in and through you. This is why faith without action is dead. Action is not an emotional outburst. Action is the product of a submitted will. Think of the woman with the issue of blood. She pressed through the crowd not by strength, but by decision. She had no appointment, no invitation, but she said within herself, "If I just touch the hem of his garment, I shall be made whole." That was her will speaking. Power didn't come to her simply because she suffered. It came because her will reached through the barriers of society, shame, and sickness, and connected with divine authority. Even in science, the principle holds. Consider Galileo, who challenged religious and cultural norms to propose that the earth revolved around the sun. He could have stayed silent, but his will to speak the truth unlocked a shift in global knowledge. Revelation, whether divine or natural, responds to courageous will. Too many people wait for power before they make a move, but power often comes after the move, not before. A spaceship does not gain thrust until it resists gravity. Power follows resistance. Will creates that resistance. And when the will is fully aligned with purpose, power comes, not just earthly strength, but supernatural help. This is why some rise while others settle. Two people can hear the same message, receive the same opportunity, live under the same sky. Yet only one chooses to act. The difference isn't talent. It isn't education. It's the will to agree with a higher calling. A will without purpose is like fire without control. It can burn down everything in its path. The human will is powerful, but when it is not submitted to a greater vision, it becomes dangerous. History is filled with examples of men and women who changed the world, but not always for good. What made the difference was whether their will was aligned with divine or selfish purpose. Adolf Hitler had an unshakable will. So did Nelson Mandela. One used it to destroy, the other used it to restore. The power of the will is neutral until it is directed. Purpose provides that direction. Alignment brings clarity. Purpose is not invented. It is discovered. And once it is discovered, the will must submit to it. That submission is not weakness, it's mastery. Just as a laser beam becomes powerful only when focused, so too does the will become unstoppable when concentrated on purpose. The moon landing didn't happen because people were bored. It happened because a nation aligned its will with a vision bigger than ego or politics. John F. Kennedy didn't simply make a speech. He ignited alignment. He said, "We choose to go to the moon, not because it is easy, but because it is hard." That statement wasn't about technology. It was about will. Purpose makes the will sacrificial, disciplined, and creative. Alignment also brings stability. A will detached from purpose will chase whatever is shiny, whatever is loud, whatever is popular. But when anchored to purpose, your decisions become intentional. Your yes has conviction. Your no has strength. Purpose filters distractions, guiding the will through storms and seasons. This is how pioneers are born. They don't just have passion, they have precision. Their will is calibrated by calling. Whether it's a missionary in a dangerous land or a scientist testing the boundaries of the universe, it's the same truth. The will becomes most effective when it bows to destiny. Without purpose, you may reach the stars, but lose your soul on the way. But with alignment, every step, every sacrifice, every breakthrough becomes sacred. The will was not made for chaos. It was made for commission. Creativity is not born from comfort. It is birthed from conviction. The human will acts as the ignition for creativity, especially in realms we have yet to fully explore. The mind may hold ideas, but only the will has the courage to bring them into form. It pushes boundaries, defies odds, and questions limitations. Every technological leap, every scientific revolution, every journey into space began with a will that refused to stay grounded. When a person chooses to activate their will, they break the rules of limitation. Leonardo da Vinci sketched flying machines in the 15th century, not because he had the tools, but because he had the will to imagine the impossible. Centuries later, those sketches became reality. His will saw into the future before science could catch up. The same force exists in every human being. The challenge is not a lack of ideas. It is a lack of activation. The will acts as a divine permission slip, allowing the imagination to travel far beyond one's current environment. Earth may be the cradle of human life, but it should not be the ceiling of human innovation. The will is what gives imagination legs to run with. Elon Musk's companies didn't start with blueprints. They started with belief. He willed to take humanity to Mars. He faced criticism, financial risk, technical failure, but his will remained unshaken. Now rockets return to Earth and land themselves. That's not luck. That's the will operating through focused creativity. The will fuels persistence. Creative genius is not about flashes of brilliance alone. It's about staying the course when no one claps, when results are slow, when others say it's impossible. A strong will makes innovation relentless. It keeps building, keeps designing, keeps pushing when others retreat. This is why breakthrough never comes to the passive. It visits the obsessed, the ones whose will burns like fire. Even children display this truth. A toddler trying to walk falls repeatedly, but the will to move forward refuses to give up. That same force, when matured and directed, becomes the engine behind rockets, cures, art, and architecture. The galaxies will not be unlocked by those who merely study them. They will be unlocked by those who will to create what does not yet exist. The will doesn't just imagine spacecrafts, it builds them. It doesn't just dream of colonizing Mars, it strategizes and executes. The will converts vision into systems. When the will partners with imagination, heaven and earth collide. Galaxies are not unreachable. They are awaiting permission from someone's decision. Emotions are powerful, but they are unstable. They are temporary reactions to moments, but the will is a permanent posture toward purpose. Emotions fluctuate with the weather, with words, with outcomes. But the will, when trained, becomes unshakable in pursuit of vision, even when everything around you screams to quit. One of the greatest mistakes people make is allowing emotions to dictate their decisions. When fear speaks louder than purpose, the mission dies. When offense overrides discipline, momentum is lost. When comfort outweighs conviction, growth halts. Emotion feels real, but it doesn't always tell the truth. The will, grounded in truth, can lead even when emotion is in chaos. Consider the Apollo 13 mission. An oxygen tank exploded en route to the moon. The entire crew's lives were at stake. Emotion said, "Panic." But the engineers and astronauts leaned on training, protocol, and will. They worked around the clock, problem solving, staying focused, refusing to be ruled by emotion. They survived, not because they were fearless, but because they were willing to fight through fear. The same principle applies in everyday life. A business owner who pushes through repeated losses, an athlete who keeps training after injury, a mother raising children through poverty. These are not just stories of strength. They are stories of willed resilience. The ability to keep showing up, keep choosing, keep trusting in the middle of emotional storms. The will gives clarity when emotions distort perspective. Anger says react, but the will says wait. Fear says hide, but the will says step forward. Despair says it's over, but the will whispers keep going. Emotion makes noise, but the will makes decisions. This is why discipline is an act of the will, not a product of how we feel. The most successful people in any field are not those who feel motivated every day. They are those who do what must be done, even when emotion suggests otherwise. The will must be trained like a muscle. When it is neglected, emotions take over, but when it is consistently exercised through intentional choices, daily commitments, and values-based living, it becomes the strongest force in your life. It silences fear with faith. It stabilizes vision during doubt. It guides actions during storms. If you want to explore galaxies, build legacies, or transform your generation, you must master the will. Because there will be days when your feelings beg you to give up. But if your will is rooted in purpose, you will stand, even when everything else falls. Humanity was created to rule, not to be ruled. This dominion wasn't rooted in force or intellect. It was rooted in alignment with divine intent, expressed through the human will. Authority, in its purest form, is the ability to govern outcomes through intention, discipline, and purpose. When man fell, he didn't lose power. He lost control of his will, and that loss led to the surrender of his authority. The will is the doorway through which true authority is expressed. You cannot dominate anything externally until you first dominate yourself internally. Self-mastery is the first battlefield. You must rule your appetite, your reactions, your distractions, before you can lead others, build systems, or conquer worlds. The first rebellion in history wasn't a war of weapons. It was a conflict of wills. In the garden, man made a sovereign choice to reject divine order in favor of personal preference. From that moment, authority became fractured, but authority can be restored, not through rituals or religion, but through a surrendered and aligned will. When you submit your will back to the original blueprint, you regain dominion. Every time you choose obedience over comfort, discipline over indulgence, purpose over pride, you are reclaiming spiritual territory. Authority is not loud, it's precise. It's not about volume, it's about alignment. Think of pilots navigating spacecraft through endless space. They are entrusted with power not because they feel powerful, but because they have proven They can be trusted with responsibility. The same applies in the spiritual and leadership realm. Authority follows the alignment of the will with truth. Without alignment, power becomes dangerous. But when the will is surrendered and stable, authority flows naturally. Jesus demonstrated the highest level of authority on earth, but it wasn't by military force or political power. It was through total submission of his will to the Father. Not my will, but yours be done. That statement did not signify weakness. It revealed total mastery. Authority always follows surrender, not rebellion. Restoration of authority in your personal life requires decision. It requires intentionality. Whether you're leading a family, a business, a movement, or even just yourself, you must first reclaim control of your will. If your will remains fractured, your leadership will be compromised. But when your will is anchored in divine design, you can govern storms, silence confusion, and command progress. The impossible becomes possible when the will is fully engaged. This is more than optimism. It's a law of manifestation. Vision is invisible, faith is invisible, purpose is invisible, but the will is the instrument that makes these unseen realities visible. Nothing changes until a decision is made. And that decision must come from a will that refuses to retreat. Willingness precedes action. Action precedes change. The will is not passive. It creates motion. Once a person fully wills something, the entire universe begins to respond. Paths open, resources appear, ideas flow. It is as though creation begins to cooperate with determination. This is how revolutions are birthed. It's how medicine advances, how skyscrapers rise, how new planets are reached. It's not by magic, it's by decision. A firm will is more powerful than talent, more consistent than emotion, and more unstoppable than circumstance. The Wright brothers weren't born into wealth or privilege. They didn't wait for perfect funding or approval. They simply decided to fly. That decision put the invisible into motion. What was once a dream became metal wings, rising into the air. Their will defied the law of gravity and rewrote human transportation. The same principle applies spiritually. Faith without works is dead, but works require a will that chooses risk, commitment, and obedience. The will becomes the catalyst that moves faith from theory into testimony. The Red Sea didn't part until Moses lifted his staff. Jericho's walls didn't fall until the people marched. The invisible God moves when the visible man decides to obey. Every great journey begins not with motion, but with willingness. You don't step into new galaxies by accident. You don't inherit new dimensions of power, influence, or creativity by waiting. You must will to begin. You must will to stay the course. You must will to see what others refuse to believe. Even scientific breakthroughs follow the same law. Discovery starts with a question, what if, but that question must be followed by a decision, let's try. It's not enough to wonder, you must will to act. The impossible is not reserved for the elite. It is reserved for the willing. Your will is the bridge between the seen and the unseen, the present and the future, the known and the yet to be revealed. Galaxies, inventions, breakthroughs, healings, these are waiting for a person who will stop wishing and start willing. You've just taken a journey, not just through thoughts, but through truth. We've uncovered the quiet force inside you that has the power to shape nations, birth innovation, and reach galaxies untouched. Your will. You are not here by accident. You are not listening just to be motivated. You are drawn to this moment because deep down, something inside of you is awakening, something ancient, something divine, something unstoppable. So now the question isn't can you, the question is will you? Will you rise beyond your comfort? Will you stop waiting for perfect conditions? Will you step into the unknown with nothing but your decision and your faith? The same force that launched rockets into space is the same force you carry within you. The same will that overcame war, poverty, oppression, and rejection is available to you right now. It's not about what's in your hands, it's about what's in your heart. And when your will says yes, the universe starts to rearrange itself in your favor. So I dare you, will to live, will to believe, will to become the person heaven had in mind when it breathed life into your lungs. Because when the human will aligns with divine purpose, galaxies are no longer unreachable. They are inevitable. Type in the comments, I will. Let the world know you're not going back. You're not settling. You're not waiting. You're willing. And because you are, nothing is impossible.